Hello citizens! In this video, I would like to talk about the manpower and infrastructure required to support military ships and fleets in Star Citizen. As always, if you like the video, sacrifice a like to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. Also, in case you missed it, I stream Star Citizen every Tuesday at 6 PM UTC. And of course, here's a quick shout out to our patrons. So, before we begin, I would like to establish what I mean by military ships and fleets. By military ships, I mean any ship whose primary purpose is combat. This includes all fighters, gunships, dropships, and capital-sized combat ships like the Polaris or the Idris. By military fleets, I mean formations of vessels that are assembled for combat. For the purposes of this video, I will consider fleets to be composed of a flagship and several escort and support ships. So now let's take a look at different formations of military ships and the expenses for operating these formations, as well as what you can do with them and what is their potential for earning money. Let's start easy, just you and your fighter. Your expenses will be fairly low because you only need to cover fuel, repairs, and long-range transit if needed. Your range of activities will also be limited to simple bounties and easier ground combat missions or recovery missions if your ship has some interior space to store recovered packages. At this level, you and your ship will be able to make more than enough money to cover expenses and still have a decent profit. So let's move up a bit. Let's say you and your friends or some NPC crew bring out a multi-crew gunship, optionally with some escort fighters. With this, you're only slightly raising your refuel, rearm, and repair costs. However, you're introducing a crew cost, which will take away the largest chunk of your profits. On the other hand, with the extended range of gunships, you will be able to cover a larger area and complete more missions and mission types. So even at this scale, your profits will be able to cover the costs and then some. So let's scale it up again. Let's say you take a Hammerhead with a full crew. Again, your refuel, rearm, and repair costs will go up, in this case more significantly. You're also significantly raising your crew costs, but once again, on the other hand, you have increased your range and the variety of missions you can do. Even if you throw in some escort fighters, the money you are making should be able to cover all the costs with some profit on top. At the moment, this is the highest level military fleet you can assemble. Of course, you can replace the Hammerhead with a Carrack and maybe add a medical ship or a dropship if you want to do ground missions. But you can't increase the combat strength of the fleet without doubling or tripling its size. At the same time, at the moment we don't really have missions that would support larger fleets. Maybe besides dynamic events like Xenothreat or the Ninetales lockdown. Obviously, moving forward, we are going to get more missions on a larger scale, like clearing out large concentrations of pirates or protecting large mining claims. Along with that, larger combat ships like the Polaris are going to get released at some point in the future as well. So now, let's scale this up to a fleet built around the Polaris. Of course, larger military ships like the Polaris will most likely require a number of escorting ships to provide refueling and repair capabilities along with a number of fighters for additional protection. Though the repair and refueling ships don't have to stay with the Polaris. They can be on standby at a nearby landing zone and only come out when they are needed. This already brings huge additional costs. Not only are capital ships expensive to maintain, if you want to have these on-demand support services available, you need to have the players to provide them to you. Of course, there will be people outside of your organization or group that will provide the service, but getting it from your own org or friends will be much cheaper and generally easier to obtain. Now, will there be bounty or mercenary missions generated by the game that will pay enough to cover the cost of such a fleet and the supporting personnel? Most likely yes. However, they will probably be very rare and require quite a lot of work and reputation to obtain. Not to mention that they will only be available in a few locations. So, what will all the owners of capital ships do with these ships? Well, we have already established that all these ships will be very expensive to operate, and at some point there will also likely be a cost associated with having these ships docked somewhere while they are not in use. Now, as we covered before, there will be missions and events where these ships will be able to make money directly, but these will be fairly rare. Another use case will be large-scale military operations either against factions in the game or other orgs over territory and assets. However, operations like this don't make money directly. So the money required for operations and maintenance will have to come from somewhere else. and the most likely sources are mining, trading, and other commercial operations. And this is actually where the bulk of responsibilities of a military fleet is going to be. If you have commercial operations going, you need to protect these operations from pirates and other players. And what is a better deterrent than a small military fleet protecting your assets? Of course, it will only deter an unprepared attacker, but even someone determined to take your assets will be in for quite a fight. This setup obviously favors groups that are large enough and equipped enough to run commercial operations and the protection operations at the same time. Groups that only run commercial operations are at a bit of a disadvantage here, but with the number of people and groups owning large military fleets, they shouldn't have a problem finding someone to provide the protection. On the other hand, groups and people that only own and operate military ships and fleets are at a tremendous disadvantage in this situation. With no commercial income flow, these groups will depend on others to hire them for protection to cover their ship's maintenance and operating costs. Now, of course, protection services will be in high demand, but at the same time, there will be a lot of people providing these services. This is not only going to drive the price down, it will also create a relentless competition between different security providers in terms of who's the best and who can be the most available. These factors combined will create a very difficult environment, where military ships will need to be on duty almost constantly with little to no time for dry docking and repairs, which will create more strain on the crews and the hardware. In conclusion, if you or your group own and plan to operate military ships, you either need to be prepared to work very hard to earn enough money to maintain them, or you need to start thinking about setting up commercial operations like mining, trade, or salvage to provide the necessary operating budget. As we know from the real world, militaries don't make money, but they protect assets and resources that do. With that being said, that's it for tonight. What do you think? Can mercenary work be the only source of income of an org, or will they need to find alternative means of earning money? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.